where else do you experience something like an IKEA store? People like to spend a day out with the family and be in the shopping mall, be in the IKEA store, stroll around, touch, feel, experience the products.
Good morning, you're listening to The Breakfast Grille. I'm Shazana Mokhtar. The blue and yellow logo of IKEA, arguably Sweden's most prominent export, has become a universal beacon for anyone looking to furnish their home. How is the world's largest furniture retailer navigating the challenges that come with greater competition in the online space, uncertain global economic conditions, and increasing pressure to substantiate sustainability credentials? We're going to be discussing all these themes in the Malaysian context with Malcolm Pruys, Retail Director of IKEA Malaysia. Malcolm, good morning. Welcome to The Breakfast Grille.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start with understanding IKEA's business model and its operations in the region. So IKEA works on an atypical franchising model. There are 12 franchisees. They own and operate stores across 63 markets. Now, there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason for how the different markets are carved up. So Ikano Retail, the franchise owner of IKEA Malaysia, also owns the brand in Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and Mexico, but not Indonesia. So
Correct.
What explains the curious configuration?
Well, I suppose the 12 franchisees can all apply for markets when they come up from inter-IKEA systems. So, of course, geographically, we like to have in Ikano Retail most of Southeast Asia, and then Mexico, which is part of Central Latin America or the North American market, was an opportunity, hopefully for future expansion. We think that that's a good place. So Mexico, you could say, is maybe a start point for us there. And then other franchisees apply. So we also have, for example, Falabella that operates Chile and Peru. Dairy Farm operates the Indonesian market today, as well as Hong Kong and Taiwan. So sometimes it's geographical. Sometimes it depends if those franchisees have other businesses in that market and understand it very well, to be able to have a successful market entry.
So Ikano Retail is also the only franchisee owned by the family of IKEA's founder, Ingvar Kamprad. I'm wondering what that means and what's the linkage between Ikano with other business entities under the Kamprad family, such as Inter-IKEA Systems, like you mentioned, or Inca Group, the largest franchisee of IKEA.
Yeah, well, those entities aren't under the family. So they're independent. So Inca is the largest franchisee today, so they operate wholly independently from the family, as does Inter-IKEA. Of course, the Peter, Matthias, Jonas, the three sons, have involvement in those businesses, whether they sit on boards and things like that, but they don't have a vested interest in it. Ikano is their family-owned business, so it's no different to any other family-owned business in that sense. They have interests in real estate, insurance, a little bit in banking, and of course retail. So their total interest in the IKEA franchise system now is the markets that they are the franchisee for.
I'm curious also because you started your career in IKEA Australia, which is under the Inca Group franchise.
Correct.
Before hopping over to China, and then you moved to Singapore, which is under the Ikano Retail franchise. So how much inter-movement is allowed within all the franchisees under the IKEA Group?
Yeah, I was in Taiwan as well, so I was with Dairy Farm. So Ikano is the third franchisee that I've worked for today. People move around across businesses depending on interests and capability. I think that's one of the things that's most interesting. I'm 26 years working for IKEA now, and I think that's what is really interesting about the business is that you can move across borders, you can move across entities, you can take opportunities that maybe in a traditional sense you wouldn't get the opportunity to do. They back you for who you are and your values because we can always give the competence to people. So I think that's something that as a brand we can be really proud of, regardless of who the franchisee is.
I'm curious about IKEA's official brand positioning versus perception, especially in Southeast Asia. So in developed economies, IKEA is seen as the accessible, affordable option to furnish a home. But in developing countries where purchasing power is much lower, does that positioning still hold true?
I think in some markets, yes, but I think in other markets, we're still on a journey to being as affordable as humanly possible. better everyday life for the many people. That's what we're all about. We understand thin wallets, but we have work to do, particularly in developing markets where perhaps wages don't grow as quickly. We still have production techniques that we are working on to make things more affordable, to shorten shipping times, to use new, more sustainable methods of production, but keeping the prices low. So, I think if you're in Sweden, I suppose IKEA is seen as a very, very, very affordable. Been there for a long time. I think there's a greater challenge when you're in, say, Malaysia or China, for that matter.
Yeah, who is your market in Malaysia? Is it the M40 or is it the T20? I mean, are you too expensive for the M40 but too cheap for the T20 here?
No, I don't think so. I think we're predominantly M40, and then I would say, if you can say that, a top end of the B40 as well today. And of course, what we're trying to do is push our prices as low so that as many people as possible can afford. So I wouldn't like to say that we target one particular segment. We are very much for the many. So the more that we can get to the B40 over time, as the B40 rise up, and our prices come down, will be even more affordable. So that's the aim.
We're going to come to the question of prices, but I'm looking at your turnover, your annual turnover for 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Malaysia is the largest market for IKEA out of the Southeast Asian markets under Econo Retail.
Yeah, depending on which currency you want to use at the minute, sure. But yes.
Using the euros, I suppose.
Yes.
It was also the worst performing market in 2023 in that sales fell 10% to 324 million euros. I think that's about 1.5 billion ringgit.
Yeah.
Is this a sign that the markets that you're targeting or that the Malaysian consumer is tightening their purse strings? And what does that mean for your bottom line, essentially?
Yeah, I think it's both. We came out of an extraordinary 2022 where we had 36% growth post-pandemic. A lot of pent-up demand. People were really happy to be able to enter not just our IKEA stores, but our malls as well that we're attached to. So I suppose in some ways it was a little natural that we'd have a more subdued 2023. But of course, cost of living increases, subsidies going away, higher interest rates, all of that puts pressure on disposable incomes for the many Malaysians. And I think we feel like most of the retail sector does today. It's a little bit tougher, and people are prioritising, I suppose, food, education today. And we're still on a journey of creating an interest in the home. So people were forced to be interested in their home during the pandemic because they were forced to be at home. And we're trying to find ways to continue to stimulate that that thinking that the home is the most important place in the world. It's where you're safe, it's where you're comfortable today. And I suppose as it gets less affordable to travel because wallets are thin, then the home becomes more important again. So we feel like we have a big role to play there, and we think that will grow quite well over the coming years, albeit not those huge numbers of 2022, 36%, right. But we do see a possibility for incremental growth.
At least in this halfway point in your financial year, are you seeing the tide change, or is it still a bit of a decline in terms of consumer sales?
Yeah, it's still quite tough market at the minute. I think you can see people are adapting to the new cost of living. They're adapting to having a higher mortgage payment, a higher car payment, a higher credit card payment, a higher food price today. So they're being more considered with their purchasing. Every now and then we see the green shoots. Yeah, so it goes up a little bit, it comes down a little bit, goes up a little bit. So it's reasonably inconsistent at the minute. But we think that 2025 will be...
Okay.
I don't know if you want to say bounce back here. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be 15 or 20% growth, but I do see more positive numbers on the horizon.
So what's notable has been IKEA's strategy to lower prices for some of its products globally beginning September of last year. And this has been rolled out to stores in Malaysia as well, despite the tough times that you talked about. How exactly are you making this work? What's the trade-off for these lower prices? Is it a less quality product?
No, definitely not. That I would say. Our democratic design and our approach around the product never changes. We look for gains, obviously, in production technique, for new materials, different types of transport, more efficient transport, more consolidated, and selling higher volumes. So the more we sell, the lower our prices can get, of course. So never ever compromising on quality. But certainly looking for new ways to lower our prices. So I think it was 300 products September last year. We will lower prices on substantially more than that as we come up to September this year. We're really looking forward to being able to contribute to a more affordable home furnishing experience for Malaysians in the coming year as well.
These price cuts don't apply across your entire product line. How do you determine which products you're able to sacrifice those margins on? Because you are sacrificing margins and lowering these costs, right?
Sure.
Even though
we get better prices through the value chain though as well, right? So we're trying not to be greedy. So the easiest thing to do is put that in our pocket. What we're trying to do is balance our need to be profitable so that we can grow and be sustainable for the future, but at the same time make sure that the customer gets the very best deal. So yes, we sacrifice a little bit, but we get lower prices through the value chain. So we've seen, of course, container prices, shipping prices, etc., have come down since the pandemic now. So we're returning to more normal levels. That means that we get a better kind of cost price on goods, and we're trying to pass that on to customers. Then where do we focus? We tend to focus on the articles that we know are the most important to Malaysians. So we're focusing around storage and the bedroom. Those are the important parts of the range for Malaysians today, and trying to make those as affordable as humanly possible.
Are you making up for the narrowing of margins for some of these price cut items through price increases on other products or services?
No, we did increase prices during the pandemic. We were forced to because it was unsustainable at the prices that we were getting. But no, we don't rob Peter to pay Paul, actually. We try to remain consistent with our pricing. We don't want to be a boom and bust retailer. Malaysia's a very discount-driven retail market. Our competitors, without mentioning a couple of them, they've been on sale pretty much for the 18 months I've lived in Malaysia. So what is the real price, actually, of the article to a consumer? And that's where we want to be. Everyday low prices, not, hey, we've taken 10% off this article for 3 weeks. No, we've taken 10% off this article, and that is the new price, the everyday low price. And that's really what our focus will be, affordability over time, not discounting.
Looking at other cost elements of IKEA, I noticed that worldwide, the IKEA workforce in 2023 decreased to 219,000 from the year prior. I'm wondering if that's also reflected in your Malaysian staffing.
Yeah, we've been consolidating how we're organised in Malaysia. But again, it's not a cost-cutting exercise. It's a changing retail environment. We have a greater share of online purchasing than we've ever had before. The pandemic really shifted the way people research, shop and buy. They want convenience, they want better services, they want to shop at 2 a.m, not just when the bricks and mortar store is open. So what we're doing is shifting resources to make sure that we meet the customer in the best way. So investing on the front line in our physical units, and then making sure that we've got the right resources applied for the e-commerce business so that we can deliver quicker, on time, assemble better, and provide services that we know a modern customer needs.
I'm speaking to Malcolm Pruys, Retail Director of IKEA Malaysia. When we come back, we'll scrutinize IKEA's sustainability claims, also look at its e-commerce segment. Stay tuned, BFM 89.9.
Thunder, lightning and the thunder, 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 hear the thunder, lightning and the thunder, thunder. Malaysia's #1 5G network, with you mobile.
Thanks for staying tuned to The Breakfast Grille. I'm Shazana Mokhtar, and with me today is Malcolm Pruys, Retail Director of IKEA Malaysia. Earlier on, we were going over some of the numbers of IKEA Malaysia, your sales turnover, how you're keeping prices low or lowering prices. I would like to turn to e-commerce now, which you did bring up. IKEA has been seen as coming in rather late to the e-commerce space, but as it stands, online sales globally make up about 23% of total products sold. Is this figure also mirrored in Malaysia?
It's about 13%.
So lower.
In Malaysia, lower. We still have a really, I think, good, strong malling culture in Malaysia. You know, people like to spend a day out with the family and be in the shopping mall, be in the IKEA store, stroll around, touch, feel, experience the products, eat plant balls and meatballs and chicken wings and curry puffs in our restaurants and our Swedish food market and bistro, and have the totality of the experience. So, you know, our movement is really to being a store-based omnichannel retailer. We don't think that e-commerce is the only way to grow. We think that that needs to be done in harmony with the thing that makes us as a brand really unique, and that is that store experience.
Right.
Where else do you experience something like an IKEA store?
You do have to make a day out of it, really.
Yeah, you do. And I think that what people are doing is that they're perhaps using the web to research, see what they like, come to the store, spend the day out with the family and the kids, test and try, sit on the sofa, lie on the mattress, touch and feel the bed linen. And then sometimes, well, if I'm going to have it delivered and assembled anyway, then I'll purchase it online. That way I don't have to wait at a till or take more time today. Or sometimes they'll go home, think about it, make a buying decision after talking about it as a family and shopping online. And then we're fulfilling all of that from the stores as well. So I think we have a really unique position compared to some of the competitors that either operate only digitally or only on a platform, whereas you get to touch, feel, try, and then you get the benefit of the quality, the guarantees, the sureness of a bricks and mortar retailer that's been here for 30 plus years and certainly intends to be here for another 30. Talk to a person if there's a problem with the article. So we think that's a good strategy. Yeah.
Okay, so you're definitely going for both strategies. But this 13%, are you happy with the percentage at this point, given that, like you said, I think in Malaysia it's really very much IKEA is an experiential retail model.
Yeah.
Does that mean 13% is as much as it goes?
No, I think it'll grow still a little bit as people get more confident with shopping online, as we start to develop more of the payment methods and possibilities to make it easier for people to have that totality of omnichannel experience, that the online share will grow a little bit, but it will never be the bulk of our turnover. The stores will be kings and queens,
Do you have a target that you're looking to reach in terms of online sales, especially as you think about growing your collection point network? I think at the moment IKEA has about 6 collection points.
Yeah, 7.
So how does that expansion work? Are you looking to see online where the pickup is before you decide where you want to grow?
Yeah, I suppose part of the collection point is we want to be more accessible. So today we have 2 stores in Klang, covering the KL market. We have a really nice store that will be, I think, one of the best stores for our future in Penang, part of a master development up there with Aspen Vision City. We think that's going to be a really wonderful location. Today doesn't perform as we would like it today, but we know it will. And then, of course, we have Tabrau in Johor. So we cover the big, if you want to say the big cities, but that doesn't mean that if you live in Ipoh or Malacca or Terengganu that you should miss out. So we at least want to be able to provide the opportunity for you to have a collection point today. And then maybe, depending on how those work and operate, we can start to talk about future scalability. Small format store. You know, the IKEA store is also changing. So the 43 or 44,000 square metre big blue box is also shifting. We have new store formats. We enter into 10,000 square metre stores in shopping malls, on 5th levels of shopping malls, in all different environments today. So that's something to look at for the future. But it's a way for the brand to be accessible to the many people, which we think is really important.
In looking at the performance of the individual outlets, you did mention that the northern outlet, the Penang one, isn't doing as well. And I'm wondering, how does the performance of the other outlets also compare to the overall 10% reduction? Are we seeing that across the board, or is it more mixed? What's the picture like?
It's a little bit mixed. You can say that Penang, we opened Penang not long before the pandemic. So, of course, it's suffered a little bit. The area around the store hasn't developed as quickly because of the pandemic. That really starts to shift now. I was up there last week for 2 days. There's an amazing amount of development going up all around Bandar Kasia and Batu Kawan and within Aspen Vision City, who we're working with up there today. So we know that it will come. Yeah, it's just it's a sheer weight of numbers thing in Penang. It's not because people don't love the brand anymore. They absolutely love the brand. It's just not as developed as quickly as we would like. So it struggles a little bit. But I mean, it's a good, profitable IKEA store. It's our own expectations it doesn't meet, not anything else.
Okay.
And then Klang is doing well, we can say. And Tabrau is really starting to come up. So we've seen the last 12 months, it's our best performing unit. In terms of last year, it's up on last year, which is a bit of a rarity in retail at the minute. So that's doing well. We can see that really developing in a good way. The Toppen, the mall that we're attached to there, is really starting to come up as well. We have some good collaborations with JDT and other partners down there that's really driving traffic. So,
it makes sense, I think. The Johor story, we're seeing it boom in a lot of different sectors, and I think it makes sense that IKEA is also benefiting from that. Yeah,
it gives us optimism for the rest of the country, I think, as well. We think that with Johor starting to come back to pre-pandemic levels and growth on top of that, we think that that's when I talked about the green shoots earlier on. I think that's where we see, we're still really relevant in this market. Malaysians still have a great love affair with the brand. Yes, things we have to be better at, but growth's coming.
Okay. I want to dig into what I see as the contradiction at the heart of retail and business models like IKEA. So on the one hand, IKEA touts itself as being sustainable, but your business model relies on increasing consumption. So isn't sustainable retail somewhat of an oxymoron?
Well, yeah, I suppose it depends on how you produce. It depends where you get your raw materials from, and it depends on how you're behaving in a broader context of sustainability. So we have a platform where we want people to have a more sustainable life at home. We want to be fair and inclusive, and we also want to make sure we're doing our bit when it comes to climate change and carbon emissions. So some of that's related to, how do you build a building? And if you have an older building like Damansara, 20 years old, how do you bring that building into a modern world over time? So this year we'll cover the roof with solar panels. It's our last remaining unit to have solar on the roof. We've started our journey with EV vehicles. We have 2 on the road today, 10 by the end of the year, 70 by 2027. I don't know another retailer that's doing those kinds of numbers when it comes to embracing EV for home delivery. And then the way our products are made, we have a long history of sustainability, long before it was cool, if I want to say that.
But how do you reconcile that contradiction? Because the longer your products last, if you want your customers to have these long-lasting products, that also limits what they buy as well. So how do you reconcile with that? Yeah,
but I think it's new consumers over time. Teenagers become adults, they get married, they buy their first home, they still need a sofa. They still need a kitchen, they still need a garlic press, they still need a wok and those things. So it's not necessarily about being a throwaway brand where you can buy something today, throw it away and buy a new one tomorrow because it's affordable. I think it's just the market will grow over time. As population grows, more homes are required. Therefore, people need something to sit on, something to eat off, something to drink out of. And then how we do that in a sustainable way, recycled products. We start to talk about having a second-hand market now in our stores. We work with Unearth, for example, here in Malaysia today to give old products a second life, to make sure they don't go to landfill. New production techniques, LED bulbs. IKEA were the pioneers. We banned plastic bags in 2011 already.
So you see a broad range of areas in which operations and really consumer habits and lifestyle can be made more sustainable. I'm curious in terms of what are the obstacles to implement implementing some of these initiatives in Malaysia? I mean, you talk about, secondhand, making it reusable, but how well is the infrastructure and systems in the country to facilitate those kinds of projects?
Yeah, that's still the challenge in a market like Malaysia. It's still in its infancy, I would say. Some of it may be a little bit policy related, a little bit slower on the uptake. We've had a real challenge around the EV conversation. So EVs in terms of a consumer car, no problem. That starts to come now, more charging and everything. But if you want to do that for a 2-ton truck, that's much harder. Not a lot of production in Malaysia, not a lot of infrastructure, not a lot of incentives when it comes to that side of the business. So, yeah, there's always hurdles, but I think it's brands like IKEA that can speed that up. If we go all in on something. So we have decided with our partner to go all in on EV, for example. So that will generate something. Maybe 70 vehicles doesn't sound like much in 3 or 4 years, but if we start to make that change, then I suppose other retailers and other businesses start to see the possibility of doing that, and that spurns something. So we see a big responsibility as a brand to push things, not wait for government.
Okay.
We will do the right thing as a brand.
All right, you're part of the momentum that's moving forward.
I think so.
Speaking of doing the right thing, IKEA Malaysia did come under the spotlight in April last year over labor policy breaches involving the recruitment of security guards from Nepal. Now, ultimately, you terminated your contract with the errant supplier. What can you tell us about the accountability process that took place, and what were the gaps identified that allowed something like this to happen? And how did you rectify that? Yeah, geez, what a challenging sector that is for any, not just retailer, but any business in Malaysia that is operating using, if you want to say, foreign labour to fulfil certain parts of the market. Cleaning services, security, etc. It was brought to our attention. We did an internal investigation. We have our own standard called IWay in IKEA. So to be a supplier, you must conform to that standard. You must be able to prove that you conform to that standard. So we did an investigation. How long did that investigation take from the moment the report was brought to your attention to when it was concluded? Yeah, it was about 10 weeks. In total, interviewing a lot of guards, trying to talk to the supplier, getting to the bottom of it. We'd made a request and a long-standing supplier with us actually for a long time. We couldn't come to an agreement in the end, so we chose to make a tough decision and move on. And now we have a new supplier, and we have checks and balances in place. Does that mean it is airtight, watertight, never to be seen again? I think it's impossible the way it is currently set up in Malaysia today for that to be completely possible. But we certainly as a brand stand for the highest standards. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. What were the mistakes in this one? Was it? I'm not so sure that we made a mistake. You could say that sometimes you don't necessarily get to the root cause in an easy way. There's a lot of distance between, say, IKEA and what happens back in Nepal. So unless you have your own boots on the ground in those countries, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to measure. So now we do more checks and balances when people arrive in the country and they come to their first day at work, working for a third-party supplier, but inside an IKEA building, to make sure that we don't meet that same situation again today. But yeah, we still, like everybody else, we still have work to do there, but it's at the front of our mind, and we're working all the time to improve our relationship with all of the suppliers that we have connected to third-party providers. That is one thing IKEA has been good at, I think, acknowledging where it stumbled or where it's missed the mark, and really holding itself accountable to in these kind of cases. Given that you operate in 63 different markets, IKEA is no stranger to cultural faux pas, but that doesn't stop you from tailoring the IKEA experience to each market, which you've done with considerable success, I would think. Case in point here, it's the IKEA curry puff. I think it's pretty much become an institution of sorts. But currying local favor doesn't make you immune from calls to boycott the brand whenever geopolitical sensitivities, especially involving Sweden, come up. So have you seen this affect your business here? And how do you manage those negative associations, whether they're right or wrong?
Yeah, we're a home furnishing retailer, and like I've said a couple of times today, we're here for the many. We're super proud of the way we conduct business in Malaysia today as a home furnishing retailer. We employ over 1,500 Malaysians. We have, on top of that, we have another 12 or 13 different cultures with, from Swedish to British, Australian, Chinese, from all over the world working for the brand today. We haven't seen, I can say, a big effect from calls to boycott the brand. We prefer not to get involved in politics. We're here to make sure that you can have the most affordable home furnishings in your home, and that you get good service, that you see a fair and inclusive employer operating and providing work and livelihoods for many Malaysians across the country. I'd leave it at that, I think.
Malcolm, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I've been speaking to Malcolm Pruys, Retail Director of IKEA Malaysia. This has been The Breakfast Grille on BFM 89.9.